would be like this. So now everything up here is coming through and we're rolling off the lows. Now this one's more critical because there's not a whole lot of high information that's going to leak into your low mic, but there's a whole lot of low information that's going to leak into your high mic. And depending on the mics you have, but most mics have. So miking a Leslie. A lot of churches now are taking their Leslies out of the sanctuary, putting them in a back room or a closet. And the idea is that they can get a better mix out front. They don't have all that sound coming off the stage. That's why you see drums put in those cages. There's a lot of different techniques for miking a Leslie. And I have a link down below of a really good article where they tried a whole bunch of different miking techniques and they did recordings of all of them. And you can check that out. Please check that out. I'm not an expert on mics or mic placements, but I do have a couple of tips. Number one, the most common way that Leslies are mic'd is 2 mics on the top rotor, 1 mic on the bottom rotor. You see this in a lot of pictures of studios recording. Also, there's a very common picture of a Leslie being mic'd on a stage, and the mics are literally right up against the Leslie or even inside the back of the Leslie. And the reason they do that is because they're trying to separate instruments from different channels. So if the drummer's right next to the Leslie and your mic is pulled away and turned up loud in order to hear the Leslie, it's also going to pick up the drums. If you can put it in really close, turn it down, then you're just going to typically pick up that instrument. Same with guitar amps, they usually have the mic right in the front of the guitar amp. It's not for sound as much as it's for isolation. Well, if you're going to take the Leslie out of the room and put it in a back room, you've already isolated it. So now we can think more about the sound. And it turns out that miking a Leslie super close is not the best sound. It's be like if you were to put your ear right next to the Leslie, that won't sound as good as just standing away from it a few feet and listening to it naturally. So if you could recreate that with your mics, you're going to get a much better sound. Also, miking in really close, you're going to pick up more motor noise, you're going to pick up wind noise from the rotors, all the rumbling and vibration. Backing it away reduces that greatly. How far do you back them away? It's an experiment. I mean, number one, the environment is the most serious thing. Where are you going to put it? Is it completely enclosed? Is there any space around it for it to breathe? Where you can move the mics a little bit further away. I have one church, they have it in this is actually a box made for like guitar amps when they intentionally move them off stage and mic them in an enclosed acoustic cabinet so it doesn't bother anybody else. And they have a Leslie in one of those and there's no room. And so the Leslie, the mic in the back is right against the back and practically right against the Leslie. And then they got one in the front. They need a little space. It's going to sound better if there's a little more space. And probably the most obvious is the lower rotor. The lower rotor, you know, as it's turning and speeding up and slowing down, you're getting that whoop, 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 that kind of thing. The closer the mic, the more obvious that effect. And if you listen to it in a room, it doesn't sound that drastic. It's more smoothed out. It's smoothed out because the sound's coming out of all 4 sides. It's bouncing off the wall behind it and the walls on the sides. And we're hearing all of those reflections. If you put it in an environment where there's no reflections at all and you just have the mic right up against the rotor, you're not getting the normal sound. Okay. In this link that I put below, they tried close miking, far miking. They have audio examples of all of them. Check them out. I was actually surprised by some of them. But in some cases, they used one mic like 5 feet away. It sounded great. So anyway, not a mic expert. I mainly wanted to talk about considering that the mics aren't too close to the Leslie to get a more natural sound from it. Best you can do with that. There's also a lot of different types of mics that people use. Again, I'm not an expert on that, but you know, do some research and find out what people use. Condenser mics on the upper rotor is common. Large diaphragm mic on the bottom is common, like an RE20 or 421 Sennheiser. Those types of mics are very popular for that kind of job. Now, if you're running stereo, a lot of times you're thinking, okay, we have a left upper mic and a right upper mic. We have to pan this one left, this one right. You don't have to hard pan them. It may not even be desirable, but play with it. It may turn out to be beautiful. It depends on your building, where your speakers are located. But it may turn out that not hard panning them, but just a little bit of panning one way or the other can help the sound. So, you know, pay attention to the panning. It's not always hard left, hard right. Another thing that's happening is when people are miking their Leslies off stage, it's because the musicians are probably converting over to in-ear monitoring. In-ear monitoring. So I was at a church the other day, and they're miking their Leslie in one of those boxes where the mics are all too close. But it sounded terrible in the earphones. Terrible. It sounded pretty good in the sanctuary. So sound guy was there, and we talked about the the high pass, low pass of the mics. It just had this phase shifting sound. It was just not natural sounding at all. I blame a lot of it on the fact that the mics are just too close, and physically they don't have a way to separate them out too much. But one thing we tried is we went over to one of the upper mics and reversed the phase 180 degrees, and actually helped it. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes you have two mics, or they're pointing at each other in a sense with the Leslie in between them, and it might actually be better to reverse the phase of one of them, and that might get rid of some of that noise. So that's phase issues in mono. However, go stereo if you can. Talk to your sound guy, talk to your church. Every year this stuff gets better and it gets less expensive. It's easy to do stereo now, and I think an organ should be in stereo, keyboard should be in stereo, even guitars. Our guitar guy at our church, all of his effects are stereo. So they had him in stereo, me, the other keyboard, and then even the drums, they do a little bit of panning on the drums. So stereo is good. We're not doing stereo so that there's something coming out of one side that's not coming out of the other side. That would mean that people sitting on the other side aren't going to hear what's coming out over there. It's not that drastic. It's basically a lot of sounds are recorded in stereo. The effects create stereo, and stereo is just mainly a widening of the sound. So it's kind of the same sound on both sides, but there's a lot of phase differences, and that's what gives our ears the feeling that it's wider, that width to the sound. When you take those sounds and crush them together electronically, now those phase differences become very drastic. You start getting comb filter effects and things like that. So again, if you can get stereo going in the in-ears, that's going to be a big help. The frequency range of a Leslie, I looked it up, it's 32 hertz to almost 6,000 hertz. And that's it. It's kind of a limited range, really. So 32 hertz for the low C pedal, and the highest C on the keyboard is 5919 hertz. So almost 6,000. So again, on your high mic, you could actually roll off anything above, say, 10K. There's nothing really up there. You could roll that off. Just anything you can do to remove frequencies that might be getting into those mics that don't have anything to do with the organ anyway. Okay, so here's an example of a low pass filter. So everything here is passing through, and then we're rolling off the highs right there. The filter cutoff here is 10K, but as you can see, it's rolling off all the way back to 1K. So the crossover is 800 right below that 1K line, so we don't want to lose anything at the crossover point. Anything beyond the crossover point, there's nothing there for the woofer. So this is the low pass for the woofer. We're basically just taking, any high frequency stuff that might be in the room or what have you, just taking that out to clean it up. A lot of the noise we hear in the low pass range is 60 cycles. That comes from motor vibration. It comes from hum. And you can put a filter like this right there. And notice it's a very narrow spike rather than having it super large. Like, for example, you can, this is a more normal curve, but we're losing a lot of stuff around both sides of the 60 cycles. Really, we're just after the 60 cycles only. So this is just something to think about. And then, of course, with your low frequency, if you want to add some bass here, you can do that, add a little more bass. So that's low pass. The high pass would be like this. So now everything up here is coming through and we're rolling off the lows. Now this one's more critical because there's not a whole lot of high information that's going to leak into your low mic, but there's a whole lot of low information that's going to leak into your high mic. And depending on the mics you have, but most mics have pretty good frequency response, and they're going to pick up rumble, noise, vibration, hum, all that kind of stuff, motor noise. So all we really want is the organ sound. So here's our 800 right here. So if I do that like that, you can see how we're adjusting the curve. I usually want so 800 is our center frequency. I usually want to come down to about 400 on the roll-off, where the roll-off begins. Okay, and that could be maybe 500, like that. Now, as you can see, the 60 cycles is covered. We got that out. All of our rumbling kind of frequencies are out right there. And this is going to clean up the upper mic. So if you're turning up the treble, you're not going to be also turning up motor noise and belt noise and rotor noise and wind noise even, because that's usually low frequency. All of that is chopped out. So this is the concept behind doing a low pass on your lower rotor mic and doing a high pass on your upper rotor mics. Typically, your upper rotors are going to be tied to 2 mics if you're doing stereo. And if you link those channels together, whatever change you do on one, it'll also do it on the other. So that's it. These are just observations I make in my daily routine of repairing these things. And I get to listen to them, and sometimes we play around with the board and we make improvements. But the very first time we did this, they had a Leslie in a box. They had 2, what were they, SM7s on the top, which is a terrible mic for upper rotors. Don't use the SM7. And I don't even remember, I had an SM7 on the bottom, I don't remember. But what was happening is they were getting all of this noise, this rumbling and motor noise and what have you in the mics. And so they had a digital board, so I went up to sound guy and I said, let's high pass those upper mics, like down to 1K or down to 400 or 500 hertz. And totally got rid of the noise. So what was happening was those SM7s, which are large, kind of large, medium large diaphragms, were picking up a lot of low end coming from other parts of that box. I don't like putting a Leslie in a box, but that's what they did. You might also keep this last thing in mind. A Leslie in a room sounds the way it does because it's 360 degrees, it's moving air, and sound is moving around constantly, either fast or slow, and it's bouncing off all the surfaces. One of the examples they gave in this link down below is they put some what they call gobos. These are like dividers that are smooth on one side and sound absorbent on the other. And he was actually using the smooth sides to give some reflections. And it had the example that they showed had a very natural sound. So keep that in mind. You're not trying to suffocate the Leslie. You're not trying to bury it in wool. It needs to breathe. And the very last thing, if I could just throw this in, make it accessible to your technician. If you're going to have a Leslie somewhere and it's going to need service from time to time, keep that in mind. If there's a way to set it up that you've got all the mics the way you want, you're getting the sound you want, but also somebody can come in and work on it without having to move heaven and earth to get to it, that would be great. And we appreciate that as technicians. So that's it. Okay, see you later.